Welcome to ReSounding, a podcast exploring the power of the arts in advocacy and in action. We talk with artists and activists, taking a deep dive into questions surrounding the causes of displacement, the strength and the vulnerability of people on the move, and the potential of the arts to shine a light on social injustice and impact people's lives for the better. My name's Darren Abrahams, co-founder of The Human Hive, one of the founding members of the Art27 network. This month, I spoke with Bemeriki Bisimwa Dusabe and Jennie Spears. Bemeriki and Jennie represent two organisations both working with planting, gardening and permaculture within refugee communities to help regenerate the land, restore dignity and personhood back to people living in challenging environments. Bemeriki represents the Rwamwanja Rural Foundation, working in Uganda to create farming and sustainable food solutions within refugee camps. Jennie represents the Lemon Tree Trust, an organisation transforming refugee camps in Iraqi Kurdistan by focusing on garden making, cooking and working with the lands as a practice of security, culture and community. We had some sound issues with the connection to Uganda, so please forgive a few glitches in the interview as we communicated with Bemeriki in the field. Hello, Jennie and Bemeriki. Absolutely fantastic to be here with you today. It's been a little bit of a journey for us to come together, so I'm so glad that we have managed to do that today. I would love for you to introduce yourselves in your own words so that our listeners can get to know you and what you do and about your organisations. So I'm going to hand over to Bemeriki first.
Well, thank you very much for this kind of opportunity. And good morning, everyone. I'm Bemeriki Bisimwa Dusabe, founding director of Rwamwanja Rural Foundation Limited, a refugee-led organization that we found in Rwamwanja refugee settlement. I've been a refugee, and I'm a refugee for 16 years here in Uganda. And our focus mostly in is permaculture and the regenerative activity that we do. We do this in teaching refugees how to grow food and self-reliance through farming and also income-generating activity through what they grow. With this, we do this by moving from one camp to another camp, also online, and also in addition to that, to make it easier to local people, we do this by making videos and a song that is translated into different languages so that people around us can hear what we are doing. So that's the work we do in ways of fighting malnutrition, also protecting the environment. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Jennie?
Thanks, Bemeriki. And thank you, Darren. I'm Jennie Spears and I'm based in the UK, but I work with an organisation called the Lemon Tree Trust. And Lemon Tree Trust supports people predominantly who are living now in the Kurdistan region of Iraq, which is the very northern region of Iraq, who've been displaced predominantly again by war and who are now living in camps. We support them to create home and community garden spaces. So we have a team of people on the ground who are mostly refugees themselves, who support people within the camps, with garden competitions, with monthly garden award prizes, with cooking competitions, and creating community spaces where people can come together, again, predominantly women, can come together and grow and socialise and forge connections to help them put down roots and sort of create new lives, I suppose.
Wonderful, thank you. I've been so inspired by the work of both of your organisations and the conversations that we've had leading up to this podcast. As you know, Art27 is usually focused on art and creativity as an expression of safety and personhood for people in vulnerable situations. But I was really interested in expanding that conversation out towards looking at gardening and cooking and permaculture as other expressions of culture and creativity. And I'd love to hear from both of you about how you feel this particular work really supports people going through this particular experience. What have you noticed in the people you work with and the areas you work with?
Okay, even now, as we speak, I'm working, teaching them how to make a stack mount and a keyhole garden. Those are backyard gardens that people want to make and they grow their own food. It is a kind of smart agriculture. You use a small land, but you get maximum food for the household to use as well as for commercial market. To show that if a household have a home where they stay, they also need to have their own garden that produces the vegetables at the time they need it, without relying on the donation of food that is being provided by WFP through UNHCR. So, which comes after a month. At a time, it may not come. It's not not enough because it is $3.7 USD per month, which covers everything. So, a household have no time and have no money to buy those vegetables, and that's why we have high number of malnourished children. So that's why we are trying to combat and fight malnutrition through kitchen gardening. If a household or a home have a kitchen garden, at the time they get food ready to use, which they have no money to buy. So that's how we do. And to make sure, as I said earlier, to make sure that people understand what we are doing. And once we have done it in some areas, we record the video. Even now I have my cameraman here. We record the video, we make tutorial, we also make documentaries. And after some months, we come back, we collect success stories. People tell us how the kitchen garden helped them. People tell us how mushroom helped them, how much they have earned from the garden, how much they earned from mushroom, and how is the family going in eating food that they are producing from home.
What I hear from your work, Bemeriki, is that a lot of this is about autonomy and independence and giving people an opportunity to lead and direct their own lives.
Yep, that's what we are doing.
How many people do you think you support, Bemeriki? You said that you work across several camps. Give us an idea of the scale of the numbers of people who are living in those camps.
Oh, well, just last year alone, I reached people that I trained face to face. I trained 985 people. That's permaculture. It is designed internationally to take, the course is designed to take 3 weeks. Then they get internationally accredited certificates of permaculture, which is PDC, permaculture design certificates. Thereafter, we also trained more than 500 online in Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania. So with more hindrance of COVID and other obstacles, and also lack of funding, like transport, accommodation for me to travel and reach more people. Since this year began, I've made almost 500 people too. With those 500 people, those are the people that I have trained. But people who have visited my garden are more than 1,000.
That's amazing. That's really very, very cool.
And I think when we spoke before, you talked about that you're expanding. A lot of your work is moving out further. I love your music videos. Can you talk a little bit more about how you use your music videos to expand knowledge of the project and to bring more people in?
Well, thank you very much. The way I use music or video to reach more people, and the mission and the vision to use video and song to teach is that while we are teaching here in refugee settlement, we have people who came from different areas. Some speak the same language, others doesn't speak that language. We also have host communities that we don't match languages. So we record videos and song of what we are teaching. If it is all about environmental protection, if it is all about sustainable agriculture, we make those and we share it on YouTube channel. Those songs are in either French, English, Swahili, and other languages that are being spoken locally to people. So we make that so that many people understand what's taking place. And once they hear, it's how they write to me requesting for the training. And that's how I have managed to go outside or beyond the camp that I stay in. Because now I work in Rwamwanja, Chaka, Chankwari, or Ruchinga refugee settlement, in Achivara refugee settlement in Kampala, which is also Kitgum near South Sudan. So I have no friends there, and I had no friends there. Some parts I've never stepped there, but I had stepped there because of permaculture. You could imagine or ask yourself how it reached there. Once one person got the video, or he shared it with a friend, and they expressed interest, they wrote to me. Even right now, I still have more requests on my table, but I'm not able to move and teach them because I don't have resources to go and teach them. That's how music and songs are helping me to reach more people in training and also advocating for environment.
Tumepata mahitaji. God bless you, bless you. Nobody like you. We think about you, we gotta friend you. Tumetoshwa mbali sana. Siturudi tena ghetto. Nimejua kujipanga. Tushafunzwa mengi sana. Thank you, permaculture. Twende mbele, twende mbele.
That we can combine our different art forms to spread the word and bring people closer. The videos are really fun. I really enjoyed listening to the videos, and the music is really great. Jenny, in Lemon Tree, I think you're also using different forms of cultural expression to bring people in. Talk about the competitions that you have, and particularly around cooking.
Yeah, so you're right. I think it's all really linked, isn't it? And we spoke before about the sort of cultural importance of not the simple, acts of either gardening or cooking, but it's what comes from that. It's the conversations that come. It's the smells and the sights and the tastes that just give you that instant association with home, whatever home looks like for you. And we've certainly found with the communities that we work with in Kurdistan that the cooking competitions, which we were able to bring back this year for the first time since COVID, are so just well loved, because it's that opportunity for people to come together, to share a meal, to celebrate their favourite dishes, perhaps that their grandmother or great grandmother or sort of have passed down through generations. And, people come together and the food just looks and smells so incredible. It always amazes me what's possible from very humble beginnings. Sort of a feast is born, and I love that. And Aveen, our operations manager, who is a refugee herself, she lives in Domiz 1 camp, which is the biggest camp in that region. She is passionate about bringing particularly women together to share food, to share experiences, and to give them a safe environment and a joyful and hopeful environment in which to have those difficult conversations that they definitely need to have, and that some people aren't comfortable having in a more formal therapeutic environment. And it's that environment that we're creating through the community spaces that we have, whether that's to come and bake bread each day. We have a bread oven within the garden space, and some women who may not garden, but they come to make bread because that's a really important daily, activity. and any surplus bread that isn't earmarked for somebody or other, and there's so many people on the list of bread recipients, that's all shared out, and it becomes a daily sort of event. But we've certainly had great success, as Bemeriki says, by trying to use different ways to bring gardening to people, and our competitions they just grow in popularity and success each year. Really, more and more people hear about them and want to take part, and it's that act of celebrating even the small things that people are doing to bring joy and beauty and often food to their tables, and we're trying to celebrate those efforts and inspire others to sort of get involved. Really,
sounds to me that what you're talking about is very human. The very human things about sharing food together, growing food together, exchanging things between each other, sharing, this whole idea of sharing. I was really interested when we talked before that you said that people in the camps are as interested in growing flowers as they are in growing food. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
That's certainly true of the area in which we're working. We work predominantly, in the refugee camps at least, predominantly with Syrians. But in the camps in which, people from other parts of Iraq have arrived, there is a sort of split in that Iraqis tend to want to grow food at their home shelters, and Syrians tend to want to grow flowers. I mean, that's a massive generalisation, and of course there's huge crossover. But when we first started the competitions, and the whole idea of Lemon Tree Trust was born out of, as Bemeriki rightly says, this idea of food security, and that on arrival, you're often relying on the tinned and dried supplies that can be moved easily across long distances, and that's what the sort of emergency response NGOs are providing to camps. But of course, people want fresh ingredients. They want herbs. They want vegetables. They need, those fresh ingredients. So Lemon Tree Trust was originally born out of that need for fresh ingredients. But it very quickly became apparent that actually, when we did a seed distribution in the camps, it was the flower seeds that were going first. It's like, I want marigolds, I want snapdragons, I want zinnias, sunflowers, and it's that little kind of just reminder of perhaps some of the flowers that were grown at home, in grandparents' gardens, in parents' gardens, and certainly for us, if we were to pick one plant from every plant that we encourage people to grow, it's the rose. Everybody has a rose, and that rose signifies so much. That the smell of it, the things that people make with it, rose tea or tinctures, or just having the sort of the blooms regularly flowering at those home shelters. That's what people love to grow.
So tell us how you get started in a project like this. Often I think I've seen photographs of some of the camps, and they're often quite barren environments, places that don't grow. I had a lot of experience in Calais many years ago, and it was a completely barren space, very difficult to grow things. So how, for both of you, maybe start with Bemeriki, what is the seed of a project? How do you start growing a garden?
Well, thank you very much. I started this project when I was still a primary school teacher. The reason to have started this is that since I've been a refugee for 16 years here in Uganda, the only food that we are given is maize, corn, and beans. So that have been common even to refugees. That is because that is the food that they were given. It also became like a disease. That's the only food that they grow, planting. So it has no nutritional value. From January to January, eating the same food. There was no access to fresh food and nowhere to buy it as well. So many children were suffering through malnutrition. And the WFP came up with a system of supporting pregnant women and children with what we call CSB, supplementary complementary breastfeeding. It is just a porridge flour that is made in millet, maize, soya beans, and they mix some ingredients. So when I've been here, I just sat and I asked, how will we live in this condition and what can we do towards of this? Then I said, now, but we have a solution within us. Why can't we come up with an idea of growing food on our own? Why can't we grow vegetable? Because I grew up seeing my grandmother. She never ate meat or anything like animal, even fish. She never did it. She was a good vegetarian. So at my age also, up to when I was 20, I've never been eating meat. But I said, now I've been healthy. I just took medicine when I was 20 years. Reaching in Uganda, it's when I got the first injection or any medical tabs. When I reached here, then I said, no, I think the vegetables that I've been eating have been somewhat medicine to me and as well as my grandmom. I know what I do. I could get a little salary. I've been working for $50 monthly. Then I could buy seed vegetables. Then I put them in nursery bed. Then I go to ask WFP when they're distributing food to give me those bags that they are removing in maize and beans. Then I could give I called people to give them seedlings and sacks. And on the same time, I could spare my time teaching them how to plant in those sacks, how to fill in soil and also planting. Then after some years, it is when I met Mora Gambo, who is a permaculture teacher, writer, and also storyteller. She's based in Australia. She has her institute that teaches permaculture across the world. Then I said, no, it's vital to attend permaculture. Then when I read through her masterclass, I found that it's useful. I requested for scholarship. So then I changed from growing food. Then I turned it into permaculture using 3 ethics. Those are people care, fair share, and ethic care. So I came in implementing those. So after attending the permaculture design certificate, I also did the permaculture teacher's certificate. That's how I came into permaculture. Then so now I can't stay with this knowledge, this kind of being greedy. I need to teach more people on how they can be away from hunger. So I've been in touch with the MORAG and other international bodies, permaculture bodies. Then they could support me with these seeds. Then we came up again with other ideas. Now, how do we continue buying seeds and why should we use these GMOs seeds? Now we are in a way of growing our own seeds, which are indigenously, and we share amongst ourselves. That's how the project started up to now. So I also use that as one way of peace building, because with using the 3 ethics, people care, fair share, and planet care, which is earth care, I find it useful than other things else. Because even politicians, for us, we are not politicians, but with the governments, they use these ethics in terms of, initially it was the Millennium Development Goal. Later on, they also changed into Sustainable Development Goals. So all what they do, it goes around the 3 ethics. So that's how, for us, we used it, and that's how I use it to build peace amongst people. As I said earlier, we are multinational. We have Rwandese, we have Burundian, we have Congolese, we have Ethiopians here, we have Somalis, South Sudanese. So it's multinational. So with these people, we have, even amongst ourselves as Congolese, we have our own tribes and ethnicities that led to the conflict, and the conflict led to us being refugees. So still here in the refugees camp, we were still having some conflicts. So I use permaculture as if one way of growing food, as one way of building peace and reconciliation amongst the community. Because people that I train are not only people who speak the same languages. are not people who are in the same ethnicities. So they are diverse. So when we use those ethics and principles, you find people are living in peace and harmony. Then we also use this to protect the environment and conserve it.
It's interesting that you mention the UN Sustainable Development Goals and conflict resolution. We also in my organisation, the Human Hive, we focus on how to solve problems looking at those goals on a local level. But it strikes me that what you're doing with gardening and permaculture hits so many of those different goals all in one project, all in one thing. You're empowering people. You are thinking about climate change, you're using local seeds, you're bringing people together from different cultures. It's such an inspiring project. So interesting to see how food and food production can support people to come together in this way. Jennie, I'm really interested in what the crossovers are in Kurdistan, in the places that you work, and also just how do you get started? The landscape is a very different kind of landscape to East Africa, where Bemeriki is based. Quite a rocky, hard, barren kind of desert-like environment. So how do you start building a garden in a space like that? And do you see similar things happening in your environment?
Yeah, it is a different landscape, and one that, through decades of misuse, if you like, has been stripped of trees in many places. The land has been chemically altered through war, and what tends to happen, I guess, is that camps spring up in pieces of land that are not useful for anything else, let's say, which isn't, obviously isn't ideal when people arrive and are trying to eke out a new existence. So in terms of how you get started, I mean, we've sort of always maintained that Lemon Tree Trust is not an organisation that is a kind of first responder. There are so many incredible organisations who have helped the regional government in Kurdistan to establish some vast camps for people who have nowhere else to live, and have tried really, really hard to enable people to settle. And in many places, certainly in the case of Domiz 1, which is the largest of the refugee camps in the region, people have been able to build their own shelters to replace the tented structures which tend to arrive first. But Lemon Tree Trust is an organisation that sort of is useful once people feel that they are settled enough to want to start to put down some roots and to make their environment a more pleasant and joyful place in many cases for their children to grow up. So kind of helping people to create home gardens through encouraging the garden competitions, that's really our sort of key first step. So a garden competition, we'll sort of promote it, and that encourages people to start just growing a few things, even if it's just in pots. We can help them with access to compost if they need it. But really, we say to people that it's only through cultivating the land that you have access to that you will be able to improve that land. So I think we don't use the principles of permaculture in the same way that I think Bemeriki is outlining. Our projects are more fluid, I suppose, than that. Although inevitably, what is happening just by chance or by design, I don't know, is that people are using their resources in the most effective way in order to grow the most effective things. So that all feeds into the principles of permaculture, just using the resources you have available to you in the most resourceful way, and just growing anything. I mean, that's kind of that's what we're encouraging through the competitions, is that we're not suggesting you grow anything in particular, but grow something, because that will help the land recover. But one of the things that we don't do enough of at the moment, and we're trying to do more of, is what Bemeriki was saying about that local seed collection, and encouraging people to collect and share indigenous seed, locally sourced seed, because so far we've had to rely on seed that has been purchased from outside of that region, mainly because there wasn't much growing in the places where we were. So, but now I think we're really moving into that we're trying to get to grips with that idea of the importance of the provenance of seed, and ensuring that we're collecting enough seed to then be able to share that around in future years.
Seems to be that what you're both talking about is regeneration on various different levels. Obviously, the regeneration of land through gardening and permaculture, but also the regeneration of people. We're talking about people who've had to flee their homes because of conflict, climate change, which we haven't talked about fully yet in this podcast. But there is a regeneration happening here. People finding themselves again, finding a purpose in life, and the land regenerating through these garden projects, but also projects that are really rooted in the soil of that place, really supporting that soil to regenerate itself. It's so interesting for us to hear. Often, we're here in the UK at the moment in November of November of 2022, and often you hear so much in the media about how we don't want refugees and migrants to come to our country. But when we really listen to these stories, and we hear actually that it's the refugees and migrants that are bringing regeneration to so many different places, bringing different ways of thinking about our land, different ways of connecting, different ways of sharing. It's such a huge blessing for us to be able to share in this way. And we're living in a time of real change, climate change, real problems of biodiversity collapse.
Yeah, we are living in a world which is controlled by individual, and also living in an environment that we have nothing to do with it. So what comes in is what we do, and we need to persevere with it. That's why I told you earlier that for us in agriculture, we are using principles and ethics. With the governments to meet their own needs, they are also using what they call sustainable development goal. So that's how they do things. And if it is political, we leave it to them.
But you're actually doing them, Bemeriki. You're actually doing them. Governments can have sustainability goals. They can say that those are the goals that they have. You don't have goals, Bemeriki. You're actually changing the way in which people think about the land, the way in which they're growing on the land, and you are training and teaching and encouraging and inspiring people to understand the importance of an individual's actions on our world. And I think that is so powerful. It's so important. And Darren, you're absolutely right that in thinking around this so-called migrant crisis that here in the UK we seem to be grappling with at the moment, I think it's so important that we recognise and encourage and nurture the diversity and the incredibly creative ideas that someone who has been forced to flee their home, uproot their family and arrive in somewhere completely different, the creativity that is required to succeed in that incredible task is phenomenal. And I am continually inspired by people and the way in which they've learned to cope, because in my very privileged position, I find it an honour to be able to work with people who've had to be on the move. And I love hearing you talk about it, Bemeriki, because there are so many things that we could bring to our projects in Kurdistan. I think there's so much more that we could be doing. And I love hearing about how it's working for you in Uganda. So thank you.
I think there's lots to be learned actually from all these projects to share with each other. I think something that has inspired me hugely watching both of your videos, like the different videos you have on social media and on your website, is hearing directly from people themselves and the pride that people have over their gardens and over the work they've done. I saw some of the certification ceremonies for Bemeriki's for project with young people with huge pride saying, I am a change maker. I am here to change the world through my permaculture, through my gardening. And to see similar things coming from the camps where Lemon Tree is working as well, people talking about the pride of sharing the bounty of their gardens. One video really struck me was of a mother and daughter who had planted jasmine and talking about sharing the scent of the jasmine with their neighbours. So there is this huge desire to connect and to support and help each other that I hear coming from the communities that you're working from, which I think is something that we, maybe in more privileged situations, not having to flee our homes, could listen to, can learn a huge amount from. So I'd love to ask both of you, before we end this conversation, what comes next? What's happening next in both of your projects?
What happens next? So we are, well, two things, I suppose. First of all, for the Kurdistan region, we are focused on, yes, doing more of the same, but I would love to bring in some of those permaculture principles that Bemeriki's been talking about and improve the way in which we source and share seed. I think that's really important. And also improve the way in which we can harness the resources of the land, the organic matter that we're producing, as part of that gardening process, compost production and moving away from a reliance on any sort of pesticide or fertilizer. I think that would be really important. And then also we're working on an exciting project actually in northern France. We're currently in the process of relocating or working on a relocation plan for the garden that Lemon Tree Trust sponsored at the RHS Chelsea Flower Show in 2018 that Tom Massey designed for us. And we're in the process of figuring out how we relocate that to a refugee project in northern France. So I think that for us would be a real step in the right direction, because I think there's lots we could be doing to promote the human nature of our work to improve relations between across territories, across borders, and try and lighten the load of some of those on the ground incredible NGOs who support people on the move in Europe. So those are my two big things I'm working on.
Wow, that's super exciting. Thank you. Bemeriki, what's happening next for you?
Well, my next step is that first of all, there is a saying that one sorrow does not make summer. No matter what good did, but there are still other good to be done. I don't stop here. What next is that I still need to have more young people, activists, trained, who will be ambassadors of the environment as well as the community they live in. We also need to have women who will take the lead on what next on their household, because still people need to have food on their table. We also still need to have men and women standing together in peace and harmony, also enjoying the same meal on table without sharing tears but sharing joy. That's my dream, and that's next of my project.
I think that you will get a lot of people signing up for this, Bemeriki. How can our listeners find you? How can we support you further as a global community?
Well, when it comes to global community, to my own way, it's better and good once people hear and also like it and share with others, so that we may become ambassadors to one another and also fulfill the need, because we are all struggling to meet the same need. And we also need to share and stand under one umbrella, neither South or West, America, Australia, Europe, Asia, and Africa. We are all the same. We have the same problem: climate change, global warming, untreatable disease, air pollution, and sea. It's affecting all of us. That's why I said that we need to have people standing together under one umbrella and sing in one joy and sharing meals.
Thank you, Jennie.
I totally agree. I think the thing that we ask, more than anything, is that through seeing even as a little bit of what we do, is to try and see people as humans. I think that is the basis of everything, isn't it? And if we begin to see each other and respect each other as humans without any other label, then I think we'll be moving in the right direction. But from our perspective, we love to share our stories. We love to share photos and videos from people who we're supporting and working alongside in the field. So, we regularly share those images on social media. And we have a newsletter that we send out 4 times a year. So if you want to stay in touch, then sign up to that and we'll keep you in touch. And we also look for projects, particularly in the UK, actually. So if you know of a project, a gardening project where refugees or displaced people are involved, then please get in touch, because we can offer you seeds. We ran a really successful seed appeal over the COVID period. And I now have a great amount of flower and vegetable seed that I'm really wanting to share, but I can't send it outside of the UK, so it has to stay in the UK. And so if you know of any local gardening projects that involve people who've been displaced, then please get in touch, and we will send you seeds, we will send you activity sheets and other things to inspire your gardening activities.
Thank you. That's a fantastic call to action for us here. And I think now both of your organisations are part of our ART27 network, so we can communicate through that. And obviously you both have websites. We'll put all the links into our show notes and to your social media channels. I really would love people to be able to see the photographs of the cooking competitions, because they're absolutely incredible. Hear the music videos from Uganda. Thank you both hugely. This is one of the most inspiring conversations I've had in a very long time. I'm so incredibly impressed by both of the projects and seeing the amazing work that's happening. And I'm going to follow you very closely from now on. I hope that we can collaborate in future and maybe bring some more music into the gardens with some of the work that we do. Thank you both.
Thank you, Darren, and thank you, Bemeriki. It's been lovely speaking to you.
Thank you too for meeting today.
ReSounding is brought to you by the ART27 Network, a network of like-minded initiatives using art and culture to respond to the ongoing crisis of displacement of human beings in Europe and around the world. To find out more and to join our growing network, you can visit our website, art27.art, or follow us on Facebook at Art27. This podcast was produced and edited by Ed Holland. The theme tune was written by Matteo Gallesi in collaboration with Synca. Thank you for listening.